Well, good Friday to everybody. I'm going to direct this lesson to the fifth graders. They're working through volume, and they're still a little bit confused, and it gets a little more confusing as you get further along in this chapter, because we pretty well can understand that if you have a rectangle, a rectangular prism, you've got length, you got width, and you got height. And if you simply multiply those dimensions together, it will tell you what the volume is. But what happens, for example, if it's a really odd shape or a combination of shapes? So if you have, for example, one rectangle here, and you set that on top of another rectangle. Now you've got basically two different shapes. And the example on 699 in your book, it says that this dimension is 6, and we're talking inches. This dimension is 2 inches. This dimension is 4 inches. The overall dimension here is 10 inches. You already getting confused with all these numbers? And the height over here is 2 inches. So now you got a lot of numbers, and all you got to do is figure out what you want to do. First thing is, you know, from here to here is 6 inches in this object. So you can go 6 inches, and you know that it's 4 inches down there, so it's also going to be 4 inches up here because they're the same size. And that's something you got to do when you're solving these kind of problems. Write in all the dimensions everywhere, because it'll help you when you decide how to do it. So you can either do this and then that, or you can do the bottom piece and then the top piece. Now, it doesn't tell you what this dimension is, but you know that from here to here, that's 2 inches. So you know if this is 2 inches, then this has to be 4 inches. And I just bet you are thoroughly confused by now. You really got to look at the object. Now there's two different ways we can do this. We can either do the bottom rectangular prism and then the top, or we can do the top and the balance of the bottom. But let's just do the bottom. We know that the bottom rectangular prism is 10 inches by 4 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so that one section of it is 10 times 4 is 40, times 2 is 80. So let's just put that 80 right here. And that's 80 inches cubed. Remember, volume is in cubic measurement. And then we'll take the next shape, which is this part of the top of this. And we know, even though it tells us the overall length is 6 inches, we know that this is 2, so this has to be 4. So let's build our box. So that's what's sitting on top of that. And we know that it's 4 inches in height. We know that it's 2 inches because it tells us that there. And we know that across it here is the same as this, 4 inches. So we got 4 times 2 is 8, times 4 is 32. 32 cubic inches. So let's add our 32 cubic inches. And that tells us that we've got 112 cubic inches. That's what the volume of that shape is, 112 cubic inches. Okay, now that was pretty easy. It's only like 2 images. It gets a little goofier as you go further into this chapter. But this is what I like about math. I sat this morning for an hour trying to figure out a complex set of numbers that had to match in totals. And I went over it and over it and over it and over it until I finally figured out that one of my numbers I listed as a positive number and it was a negative number. And that gave me the whole wrong answer, which made everything below it wrong. Perseverance is how you get through math. You don't give up. Let's try and pick a really weird shape. And boy, they sure got some weird shapes in here. But you know, they're really all the same. So let's take, for example, I'm going to move the book over here so I don't have to keep turning around. This shape, go here, here, and there, and then it goes up to this. So let's start making this thing happen. I want to make sure I draw this right. Yeah. We're getting there. There you go. It's like a big upside down T. Now let's put some dimensions on it. It's telling us that this is 1 inch. Are we in inches again? Yes. It's telling us that this is 1 inch. It's telling us that this is 2 inches. The overall length here is 4 inches. And from here to the top of this is 3 inches. So now, how do we solve a problem like this? To find out, for example, how much water you can put into this shape here to fill up the volume inside of it. So here's the first thing I would do. There's 2 ways you can look at it. You can break it into 3 sections, or you can break it into 2. And if you break it into 2, then you have one rectangle that looks like this. That would be this. And then on top of that, you've got a second one that's going to look like this. And that would be the top. Now, you got to fill in the missing parts. A dimension that we don't see in this drawing is what this dimension is. If we make this rectangle a shape we're going to do the volume for, we need to know what the height of it is. And how do we know what it is? Well, we know that overall, the total height is 3 inches. But we know that can't be 3 inches because it's shorter than 3 inches. But we also know that this height is 1 inch. So if the overall is 3 inches, the base of this is 1 inch, that means this is 2. Now, we're already told that it's 1 inch wide. What dimension is missing? The dimension from here to here across the width. And we're given that on the bottom down here. So this is to put this onto this picture here. It's 1 inch, 2 inches, and 2 inches. And for this rectangle, we know that this is 1 inch high. It tells us right here. So that's 1 inch. We know that across this whole thing is 4 inches. And we know the side is 2. So there's all our numbers. 4 times 2 is 8, times 1 is 8. 8 cubic inches. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4 cubic inches. So we got 8 and 4 all together. 12. 12 cubic inches. Now, any shape you can break into parts. The hardest part is getting those dimensions correct. So you really got to look at the dimensions, take clues from different dimensions throughout the object so that you can build. Just take any shape apart, turn it into parts, and then find the volume of each one of those parts, add them together, and voila. I think this is something that you can do. I know that it's very confusing because the hardest part, again, is determining what all the measurements are. But again, they give you clues. They'll give you a measurement over here that you need here, or you need to figure out by subtracting from this number or adding to this number. You can find every single dimension of every shape. So look at the shape. Take your pencil, cut it into separate shapes. Put the dimensions on it, do the math, and you got your answer. Now that's 11.1. Page 703 is where I'm working here. Probably should have told you that at the beginning. 705 is a unit review. And so next week, we'll review everything that was in this unit to get you all prepared, because it looks to me like you are about to finish your math lessons. So 5th graders, hope this helps you. And as always, stay safe, stay out of trouble, be kind to one another, and we'll see you next week. Have a nice weekend.